Welcome to the deep dive. You've been navigating a whole world of information, and we're here to zoom in on the truly fascinating and useful stuff.
Yeah,
Think of us as your express lane to feeling seriously in the know, minus, the overwhelm.
exactly.
Today we're tackling something I suspect is on a lot of your minds, a book called Sex Made Easy. Your awkward questions answered for better, smarter, amazing sex.
And as always, our goal is to explore this with you, to uncover the practical insights and maybe, well, a few surprises tucked within these pages.
Mm-hmm.
We know you're looking to get a solid understanding quickly, and that's precisely what we're aiming for.
So the author of Sex Made Easy, she has a serious background in this field, like really serious.
Huh.
She's designed sex research studies at Indiana University looking into things like how women experience orgasm and the nitty-gritty of lubricant use.
Right, analyzing data, writing papers.
She's crunched a ton of data, written academic papers, and even those, down-to-earth sex columns you might have seen.
Plus fielding questions from the media.
Yeah, and even put sex toys through their paces. You might even know her voice from the Kinsey Confidential audio podcasts.
So, yeah, safe to say she's immersed in the world of sex and sexuality.
Definitely.
But what's particularly interesting, I think, is what drove her to write this book.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to her grandmother's experience during pregnancy. Her grandmother, expecting a child, genuinely believed the baby would somehow emerge from her stomach.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. This really highlighted for the author how fundamental and yet how lacking basic education about our bodies and sexuality can be.
That story really brings home the book's central mission, doesn't it?
It really does.
To help people have more satisfying sex lives by addressing all those questions, the ones you whisper to your friends and the ones you Google in private. We're talking about everything from the intricacies of orgasm and dealing with painful sex,
To navigating premature ejaculation, sex after baby.
the world of sex toys, understanding the clitoris, what happens when desire levels don't match in a relationship, and tackling erectile difficulties, you name it.
Yeah. The author mentions connecting with literally like hundreds of thousands of people over her career.
Wow.
So she's got a pretty clear picture of what's on her minds.
And it's so crucial, as the author emphasizes, to recognize that sexual challenges are incredibly common.
Right. You're not alone.
Exactly. And knowing that, and crucially, having access to reliable information. Well, that can be a game changer in addressing these issues. She even shares her own experiences as a sex expert who has personally encountered and worked through sexual problems.
Which is great. It's a really humanizing perspective.
Totally.
Exactly. So our mission today, as you probably guessed, is to delve into this book and extract the practical know-how and those surprising nuggets that can help you gain a clearer understanding of the various facets of sex and sexual health.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Starting with getting familiar with our own anatomy, beginning with the vulva. Right. So important to get comfortable with the right terms and just appreciate the incredible range of what's considered normal.
Totally.
The author starts with the mons pubis, that little mound of fatty tissue above the pubic bone, and of course, pubic hair.
Ah, yes, pubic hair.
It's interesting. She brings in an Indiana University study on pubic hairstyles.
Oh, yeah.
Turns out there's no single in style.
Yeah.
Women choose all sorts of looks, from completely natural, full bush or retro bush,
Right.
to neatly trimmed or even shaped styles like the classic landing strip. Lots of variety.
Right, and that study actually found that for women in their 20s, 30s, and 40s at the time, keeping some pubic hair was more common than going completely bare.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah, so those societal pressures you might feel aren't necessarily reflecting everyone's reality. I wonder what drives those trends. Is it like fashion, hygiene concerns, or something else?
That's a great question. The study didn't explicitly delve into motivations, but we can speculate. Perhaps it's a balance between, perceived cleanliness and maybe a desire to still feel natural. Societal norms definitely play a role, and those can shift pretty rapidly,
True. Then we get to the clitoral hood and the glans clitoris, what most of us just call the clitoris, right? Even though the internal structure is way bigger.
Much more extensive, yeah.
Yeah.
The author points out that between the hood and the glans, a substance called smegma can accumulate.
Smegma.
Yeah, it's simply a mix of shed skin cells and natural oils. And sometimes even like stray fibers from underwear can get trapped there.
Okay.
And she does a great job of normalizing this. Compares it to things like sleep in your eyes or earwax.
Oh, okay.
Just a natural byproduct of your body doing its thing.
Yeah.
Nothing to be embarrassed about.
Exactly. Good to know. Next up are the labia majora. those outer lips.
And the labia minora, the inner lips.
And what's really striking here is the sheer diversity, size, shape, even color.
Totally. The author mentions a whole spectrum of shades: pinks, reds, lavenders, browns, grays, even black. And sometimes with darker edges, almost like the petals of an orchid. Really beautiful variations.
That's amazing. And it's so important to debunk that idea that labia size changes with sex or masturbation.
Oh, absolutely. Myth busted.
The author clarifies they might temporarily swell a bit during arousal, increased blood flow.
Right.
And they can change over the course of pregnancy and with age. But beyond that, they are what they are. Everyone's are unique.
Exactly.
It's wild to think about the pressure some people feel about something with so much natural variation.
Absolutely. It just highlights how external portrayals can create such unrealistic expectations. Okay, moving internally now. Let's talk about the vagina.
So the vagina is the internal canal, the birth passage. The author mentions its average length is about, 3 to 4 inches in its resting state?
Yeah, about that. But what's really fascinating is its ability to stretch and widen significantly during sexual arousal.
Right, vaginal tenting.
Vaginal tenting, exactly. This is a key piece of information, especially considering the common questions, like the author recalls from her own teen years, about how intercourse even works.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. And she emphasizes the importance of regular annual gynecological exams for maintaining vaginal health.
Super important.
Plus, a really critical point, the vagina is designed to clean itself.
Self-cleaning oven.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Douching, using deodorants or fragrance soaps can actually disrupt its natural balance of bacteria,
Okay.
which can increase the risk of irritation or infection. So, yeah.
That's good to remember. Less is definitely more in that department.
Absolutely.
She also highlights the role of the pelvic floor muscles that surround the vagina.
Kegels.
Doing Kegel exercises can not only provide support for your pelvic organs, but also enhance sensation during sex for many people.
Right. So those exercises have benefits that go beyond just bladder control. Worth looking into.
Definitely. Okay, now let's turn our attention to what the book playfully refers to as his magical, mysterious places of wonder, the penis.
Right.
One of the first things the author tackles is that age-old question about penis size.
Of course.
Referencing Kinsey's groundbreaking early research that showed a really wide range of what's considered normal.
It's a topic that has clearly been on people's minds for generations, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And then she touches on the trends of manscaping among men.
Right, grooming down there.
From simple trimming to more intensive methods like waxing. She points out that while trimming is generally pretty safe if you're careful, waxing can carry risks, skin irritation, even cuts. And some salons actually have policies against waxing men's genitals.
Oh, interesting. Didn't know that.
Yeah, something to be aware of if that's your grooming style.
Physiologically, she explains that an erection happens when the arteries in the penis expand, allowing more blood to flow into the spongy tissues inside than flows out.
Right.
As these tissues fill with blood, they press against the veins, effectively trapping the blood and causing the penis to become firm.
It's a pretty elegant system when you think about it.
Yeah, it is.
She also briefly discusses circumcision and the foreskin, acknowledging its global prevalence and the diverse religious, cultural, even medical reasons behind it. Importantly, she clarifies that preventing STIs and HIV isn't solely dependent on circumcision.
Right. Condoms are key.
Consistent condom use and mutually monogamous relationships with uninfected partners are the most effective strategies.
That's a really important point to underscore, moving beyond just the physical aspect.
Definitely. She even mentions a smaller study suggesting some women reported a greater likelihood of orgasm and longer sex with uncircumcised partners. Though she wisely notes it was a limited study, more research needed there.
Right, small sample size probably.
Yeah. Interestingly, she shares her own personal experience of actually enjoying the sensation of the foreskin during sex after initially feeling slightly, uncertain about it.
That personal touch really helps make the information feel more relatable, less clinical.
Totally agree. Finally, in this section on the penis, she introduces the prostate gland.
The prostate.
And its role in producing a significant portion of semen, about 25 to 30%.
Okay.
And here's a surprising tidbit. Some research has suggested a potential link between frequent early masturbation or sexual activity and a lower risk of developing prostate cancer later in life.
Really? That's fascinating.
Isn't it? While the exact mechanisms are still being investigated, it's an interesting connection. And she also reminds us, of course, the importance of prostate exams as men get older.
Right, crucial checkup. Okay, now let's dive into addressing some of the common sexual concerns that the book tackles. This is where a lot of really practical advice comes in.
Yeah, the awkward questions part.
Exactly. Let's start with painful sex,
Okay, this is something that affects so many people, and the author makes a really important distinction
which is.
between pain that occurs at the beginning of sexual activity and pain that persists throughout.
Ah, okay. Different causes, presumably.
Exactly. Pain at the start is very often due to insufficient lubrication and inadequate
Yeah,
foreplay,
that didn't form up time.
basically. She emphasizes that it can actually take anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes of stimulation for sufficient lubrication and that vaginal tenting to fully occur.
10 to 20 minutes, that's longer than many people might think.
Right. So her primary recommendation for that initial discomfort is to really prioritize longer foreplay,
Makes sense.
engaging in whatever activities make you feel aroused and tingly before any penetration. And she strongly suggests using water-based lubricants.
Lube is your friend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
However, if the pain continues throughout sex, that's different. She stresses the importance of consulting a healthcare provider.
Like a gynecologist.
A gynecologist is a good starting point, yeah. But she also recommends considering a specialist in vulvovaginal disorders or even a dermatologist,
A dermatologist, why?
because certain skin conditions, like lichen sclerosis, can definitely contribute to painful sex. It's not always what people initially think of.
Huh. That's a really insightful point. Shows how connected everything is.
Totally. Okay, next, let's talk about a less common but certainly impactful issue. Persistent genital arousal disorder, or PGAD.
Right. This is where women experience ongoing, unwanted genital arousal.
Without any subjective feeling of sexual desire, yeah. And the arousal doesn't go away even after orgasm.
That sounds incredibly frustrating. Like physically aroused, but not mentally.
Exactly. It can be very distressing. The author makes that key distinction between the physical sensations and actually feeling sexually aroused.
Okay. What causes it?
Well, the exact causes are still not fully understood, but she mentions potential associations with starting or stopping certain antidepressants. A single reported case linked to a very high soy diet, as well as anxiety disorders, and maybe a heightened awareness or monitoring of physical sensations down there. Seems complex.
It sounds really disruptive to daily life.
Yeah.
What kind of coping strategies does the book suggest? Are there any?
She outlines several potential approaches. Some women find relief through specific physical therapy exercises. Others report temporary relief from masturbation to orgasm. Applying ice packs to the area to reduce blood flow can also help for some.
Ice packs. Interesting.
Yeah. And sex therapy can be beneficial too for managing underlying anxiety and helping people learn to shift their focus away from those persistent bodily sensations.
Right, managing the mental side.
It's often a mix of physical and psychological components with these kinds of things.
Makes sense. Moving on to another concern. Vaginal tearing during sex.
Right. The author helpfully categorizes these tears.
Okay.
First, there are the tiny, often superficial tears inside the vaginal canal or right at the opening, usually due to friction.
Like not enough lube or...
Exactly. Insufficient lubrication, maybe a larger penis, or particularly vigorous sex. These smaller ones usually heal on their own with little rest and more lube next time.
Got it. And the second type.
Second, tears on the external vulvar tissues, the vestibule, the labia, below the opening. These might be linked to underlying skin conditions or lower estrogen levels, especially during perimenopause or menopause.
Ah, okay. So hormones can play a role.
Definitely. For repeated tearing of either type, she strongly advises consulting a healthcare provider to identify any underlying causes.
Good advice. And she emphasizes that in more severe cases, like actual cuts.
You need medical attention. And there's absolutely no shame in seeking that help. Taking care of your vulvar health is crucial.
Absolutely. Another common source of worry, discovering genital lumps and bumps.
Yeah, that can definitely trigger some anxiety.
Understandably. What does the book say about this?
Well, the reassuring news is that the vast majority are harmless. Things like moles, infected hair follicles, ingrown hairs, basically,
Right.
or genital warts from HPV. However, because in rare instances they could be a sign of something more serious, including cancer,
Okay.
the author strongly recommends reporting any new or changing lumps or bumps to a healthcare provider just to rule anything concerning out.
Better safe than sorry.
Exactly. She also mentions other changes, like a noticeable enlargement of the clitoris, also warrant medical attention. Always err on the side of caution.
Definitely sound advice. Now, let's address a topic that can be a real source of insecurity for many. Anxiety about penis size.
Ah, yes. The author offers a really reassuring perspective here,
But
emphasizing that size is far less important for sexual satisfaction than many people believe.
especially when you consider other factors.
Exactly, like how the vagina naturally expands during arousal, the critical role of lubrication, and the overall psychological connection and excitement. Fixating solely on size misses the bigger picture.
So true. And she provides helpful advice for both partners.
Yeah. For the person with the penis, open communication about feelings and anxieties is key. For the partner, focusing on and appreciating other aspects of intimacy beyond just penetration is crucial. She even mentions the Large Penis Support Group as a potential online resource for guys struggling with anxiety about being larger than average and the challenges that can sometimes present.
Huh. Interesting that both ends of the spectrum can cause anxiety.
Indeed. On the flip side, for a partner concerned their penis might be too small, the book suggests practical techniques to potentially increase friction,
Like what?
like thoroughly towel drying the genitals before intercourse, or even the temporary use of a tampon by the receiving partner to absorb some vaginal lubrication.
Oh.
It's about exploring what enhances sensation for both people.
Okay, exploring options. This next one sounds quite alarming. Penile fracture.
It certainly does sound dramatic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The author explains it's essentially a rupture of one of the fibrous layers within the erect penis, often accompanied by a distinct popping sound,
Ouch.
immediate sharp pain, and rapid swelling. The critical takeaway here: medical emergency requires immediate attention.
Go straight to the ER.
Absolutely. She even shares some rather sobering stats from U.S. data, more likely on weekends, average age around 36.
Weekends. What?
Linked statistically to instances of particularly vigorous sex in less conventional settings, sometimes associated with affairs. The bottom line is any sudden popping sound and significant pain in an erect penis means ER now.
Yikes. Okay, noted. Moving to something hopefully less dramatic, but still important. A sore scrotum.
The advice here is pretty direct. Encourage the person experiencing this to see a healthcare provider, AAC.
Could be an infection?
Could be, like epididymitis, an infection or inflammation that often needs antibiotics. She also wisely suggests seeking a second opinion if the first assessment finds nothing, as some infections aren't always routinely tested for.
Good point. Advocate for your health.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Similarly, what about discovering testicular lumps?
This is another situation where prompt medical evaluation is absolutely essential. Need to rule out testicular cancer.
Right, which is actually more common in younger men, though it can affect all ages. The book strongly encourages regular testicular self-exams for early detection.
Definitely important. Now, let's move to a topic that can be a source of both curiosity and sometimes awkwardness. Prostate play.
Right. The author clarifies the difference between external and internal stimulation.
Okay, external this.
Applying gentle pressure to the perineum, that area of skin between the scrotum and the anus. Often during oral or vaginal sex, some people find this pleasurable.
And internal.
Internally, it typically involves inserting fingers or sex toys like butt plugs into the anus.
Yeah.
Always with generous amounts of water-based lubricant.
Lube again.
Always lube. And using condoms or gloves for hygiene and safety. The key advice: start incredibly slowly and gently.
Yeah.
Pay close attention how it feels. Stop immediately if there's any pain.
Makes sense. Slow and steady.
And she specifically advises against using desensitizing products. They can mask pain or injury signals.
Good point. Okay, another question people might hesitate to ask. Suspected semen allergy.
It is a real medical condition. Some individuals, mostly women, can experience hypersensitivity or a true allergic reaction to components in semen.
Right.
Yeah. Interestingly, it can sometimes be specific to one particular partner's semen.
Huh.
She suggests if you have known dietary allergies, maybe discuss with your partner if they've recently eaten those allergens, as they could potentially be present in semen.
Interesting connection.
But any signs of an allergic reaction, hives, swelling, difficulty breathing, need immediate medical attention.
Of course.
Using condoms prevents contact, and there are potential allergy treatments available too.
Okay. What about the less glamorous side? Undesirable semen taste.
The author points out there isn't much science on how to definitively improve the taste. Lots of anecdotal beliefs, though.
Like pineapple.
That's the classic one, yeah. Consuming sweet, watery fruits like pineapple or kiwi might help. Good hygiene before oral sex is also important.
Naturally.
And a really crucial reminder: no one should ever feel obligated to do something sexual they don't want to do. If the taste is off-putting, there are alternatives. Hand release, spitting, just not doing oral sex.
Right. Consent and comfort first. And finally, semen in the eyes. Another potentially awkward and uncomfortable one.
Definitely can cause stinging, burning, irritation. The immediate advice: flush the eye thoroughly with plenty of lukewarm water for several minutes.
Okay.
If you wear contacts, take them out, switch to glasses temporarily.
Got it.
Importantly, if you're unsure about your partner's STI status, tell your healthcare provider. Eye STI testing might be recommended.
Wow.
She also mentions the surprising possibility of pubic lice transferring to eyelashes during oral sex.
Seriously? Ew.
Yeah. Any ongoing eye issues, see an ophthalmologist. And as prevention, maybe using a hand as a shield during ejaculation.
The hand shield maneuver. Good tip. Wow, that really covers a wide range of those more intimate concerns.
Yeah.
Let's shift focus now to some fundamental aspects of sexual health.
Right. This section emphasizes that understanding sexual health is crucial for everyone, regardless of relationship status or sexual activity.
True.
The author gives a clear overview of what to expect during a routine gynecological exam.
Which is helpful because it's not just the pelvic exam itself, right?
Not at all. It usually starts with a general health assessment, vitals, last period, overall health concerns. It's also a great time to ask questions.
Write them down beforehand.
Good tip, so you don't forget. And it's worth noting, you can request a nurse or medical assistant be present during the pelvic exam if that makes you more comfortable.
Good to know.
The exam itself typically includes a clinical breast exam, an external genital exam looking for abnormalities, and then the internal pelvic exam with a speculum.
You see the cervix.
Exactly. And here's a really important point. A pap test, which screens for cervical cell changes, is not automatically included with routine STI testing.
Ah, so you have to ask specifically for STI tests.
You absolutely do. That's a crucial distinction many people miss.
Yeah, and the book really stresses the risks of unprotected sex and the importance of getting tested for STIs.
You need to have open, honest conversations with your provider about your specific sexual behaviors, oral, vaginal, anal sex, condom use, number of partners, and explicitly request testing for a range of STIs. HPV, herpes, chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, HIV. Don't assume the PAP covers it all.
Definitely not. Moving on, the author highlights some potential early warning signs of ovarian cancer.
Yes, things like persistent bloating, back pain, pain during sex, unexplained abdominal swelling,
Loss of appetite, weight changes, abnormal vaginal bleeding.
frequent urination, constipation, unusual fatigue, persistent indigestion. Lots of potential signs.
And while many of these can be due to other things,
If they are persistent and new for you, it's really important to discuss them with your doctor. Don't ignore persistent symptoms.
okay. She also shares key info about common STIs in the U.S., like HPV.
HPV, human papillomavirus. Incredibly common, often asymptomatic people don't know they have it.
Scary.
It often resolves on its own, thankfully. Condoms offer some protection, and we now have the HPV vaccine.
Right. And chlamydia.
Most common bacterial STI. Also often asymptomatic, but easily curable with antibiotics.
Yeah.
Vital to get tested and treated to prevent long-term issues like infertility and to inform partners.
So important. And regarding the HPV vaccine,
The book explains its purpose. Protection against the high-risk HPV strains linked to cervical cancer and warts. Recommended before becoming sexually active for best protection.
but some people have concerns.
Understandably. The author encourages discussing concerns with your healthcare provider and getting info from reputable sources like the CDC or ACOG.
Good advice.
And crucially, even if you're vaccinated, you still need regular pap tests and cervical cancer screenings. The vaccine doesn't cover all strains.
Got it. Okay, to wrap up this section, the book has a sex smarts quiz.
Ah, yes. The answers confirm that consistent condom use and the Gardasil vaccine reduce the risk of genital warts.
Right. And a pap test checks cervical cells, not necessarily all STIs.
Correct. And finally, not all yeast infections are the same, so one type of over-the-counter med might not work for all. Best to consult a doctor if unsure.
Makes sense. All right, let's delve into the fascinating world of orgasm.
Ah, the big O. The book kicks off by busting some common myths, like the idea that vaginal orgasms are somehow superior to clitoral orgasms,
Myth.
or that all women can orgasm easily during intercourse alone,
Also a myth.
or that orgasms can last for hours.
Yeah, probably not.
The author stresses that every individual's experience is unique. Learning what brings you to orgasm takes time, exploration, experimentation.
That message of individual variation is so important, isn't it?
Totally. She even touches on exercise-induced orgasms. Shares an anecdote about a woman who regularly orgasmed while cycling uphill.
Whoa. Really?
Yeah, it just underscores how personal these experiences are. What triggers it for one person might do nothing for another. Makes you wonder about the body's wiring.
For sure. And she shares some intriguing orgasm facts you can use to entertain your friends.
Oh, fun. Like what?
Okay, first, sexual arousal or even orgasm while breastfeeding, linked to oxytocin release, can cause surprise or shame, understandably.
Oh, okay.
Second, the well-documented orgasm gap between men and women in reported orgasms during heterosexual sex. Still a thing. Third, the link between greater sexual variety in a woman's life and her likelihood of orgasm.
Interesting. Mix it up.
And fourth, people can have orgasms during sleep, linked to REM sleep and spontaneous genital arousal.
Wet dreams aren't just for boys?
Apparently not. Regarding difficulties reaching orgasm, the book mentions a potential side effect of certain antidepressants.
Oh, that can happen.
For people experiencing this, she suggests exploring vibrators for direct clitoral stimulation,
Good idea.
focusing more on foreplay to build arousal, and even discussing sildenafil Viagra with their doctor. It can sometimes help blood flow.
Worth asking about.
And for women navigating the postpartum period, she addresses the often significant changes in orgasm after having a baby,
Yeah, that's a big adjustment.
emphasizing patience, exploring sexuality anew, experimenting with positions, being understanding that it takes time.
So important for couples to remember that.
Definitely. Now let's move on to erections and ejaculation and clear up some common myths there.
Okay. One of the biggest myths the book tackles, that men have complete conscious control over erections and ejaculation.
Right, like it's just a switch they flip.
Exactly. But it's not. The author highlights the multitude of factors: stress, fatigue, a new partner, anxiety about pregnancy, even just time since last ejaculation. It's complex.
Physical and psychological.
Very much so. She draws a helpful contrast with women's ability to use lube if arousal isn't optimal,
Right.
noting the pressure men often feel when they have difficulty getting or maintaining an erection. It's not always about desire.
That's a really important point for partners to understand.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah.
She then revisits the basic physiology of an erection blood flow in, trapped blood causing rigidity.
We covered that, yeah.
Right. Now, when it comes to delayed or inhibited ejaculation, taking a very long time, or being impossible to ejaculate,
What causes that?
could be psychological factors like fear of letting go, fear of pregnancy. Could also be medical conditions or medication side effects.
So see a doctor first.
Yeah, consult a healthcare provider to rule out medical issues, then maybe a sex therapist for psychological factors.
okay.
Interestingly, she reframes delayed ejaculation. It's not always negative for both partners. It can be managed with communication and exploring alternative ways to orgasm together.
Huh. Finding the silver lining.
Kind of. And regarding changes in ejaculation with age,
Things change down there, too.
yeah, reduced ejaculatory distance, decreased semen volume, those are normal physiological changes.
Okay.
Kegels might help maintain muscle tone, but research on their impact on ejaculation specifically is limited. Key message: it's a normal part of aging. Don't panic.
Good to know. Let's shift focus now to a really fundamental question the book explores. What actually makes for good sex?
Right. Moving beyond just procreation, the book emphasizes pleasure, emotional connection, love, excitement as key drivers.
Makes sense.
And she highlights 3 crucial components for good sex. Confidence.
Meaning knowing what you're doing.
Basically, yeah. Sexual knowledge and skills. Second, autonomy.
Feeling in control.
Feeling in control, able to initiate, make choices. And third, relatedness.
The connection piece.
Exactly. Emotional connection, intimacy, trust with your partner.
Competence, autonomy, relatedness. CAR. Got it.
Nice mnemonic. Open communication about likes, dislikes, fantasies is emphasized as a cornerstone for intimacy. Takes courage, she notes. True vulnerability does.
Absolutely. Respecting a partner's autonomy in initiating sex and ensuring enthusiastic consent are also vital.
Crucial. And the author honestly addresses the complexities of attraction. How physical changes like weight gain can impact attraction even in loving relationships.
Ooh, tricky topic.
Very. She shares candid, anonymous anecdotes from women who felt less attracted to husbands after significant weight gain and how hard it was to talk about. It's sensitive, but real.
Yeah. She also normalizes feeling attraction to others outside a relationship.
Right. Clarifying the difference between fleeting attractions and actual desires to act on them. Mentions some couples even openly discuss crushes.
Takes a lot of trust.
For sure. And when desire levels differ in a monogamous relationship, the book suggests compromise, self-stimulation, exploring other forms of non-penetrative intimacy.
Finding balance. Okay, another sex smarts quiz on this.
All right. Emergency contraception. Most effective ASAP after unprotected sex, ideally within 3 days.
Got it. Non-hormonal birth control options.
Condoms, copper IUD, withdrawal method, the less reliable.
And the 3 components of good sex.
Competence, autonomy, and relatedness. CAR.
Nailed it. Okay, now for a topic that's become increasingly destigmatized and mainstream, sex toys.
Right. The book introduces them as a common, accepted way for individuals and couples to enhance pleasure and explore new sensations.
Definitely more common now.
And it backs this up with data. That Indiana University study showed over half of women and almost half of men in the U.S. had used vibrators back when the study was done. Not fringe anymore.
Not at all. She highlights how much more available they are now, too. Drugstores, retail chains.
Even some grocery stores.
Yes.
Plus, she mentions secret sex toys like vibrating back massagers people repurpose.
Clever.
When it comes to materials, the book distinguishes porous versus non-porous. Important for cleaning.
Porous traps more bacteria.
Exactly. Emphasizes cleaning thoroughly with soap and water, avoiding battery compartments. Toy cleaners are good too. Using condoms on porous toys, or if unsure is smart, especially if sharing.
Good hygiene tips. And the big question, how do you use a vibrator?
Her answer is straightforward. However you want, safely. Clitoral stimulation is common and effective. Cautions against inserting motor battery parts into the vagina or using broken toys internally without a condom.
Common sense, really.
Pretty much. For those awkward about discussing toys with partners, the book shares reassuring research. Most Americans surveyed viewed women's vibrators used positively, saw potential benefits for relationships, reducing pressure on partners.
That's good to hear.
She offers practical tips for comfort. Always use lubricant.
Lube again, sensing a theme.
Always. Start low, increase intensity gradually, adjust pressure, maybe use a towel buffer if direct contact is too intense initially. See a doctor for ongoing pain or numbness.
Okay. And a very practical, scenario, lost sex toy or condom inside.
Generally best to try and retrieve it gently yourself, if easily reachable. However, if it's sharp or breakable and in the anus, don't try self-removal. Seek medical help.
Right. Avoid injury.
And for anal toys, choose ones with a flared base or retrieval ring to prevent them getting lost internally in the first place.
Smart design. The book also gives tips on preventing vaginal cuts or tears during sex.
Yeah, emphasizing starting slowly, using positions allowing control of depth and pace, and of course,
Let me guess.
lube, ample lubrication. You got it.
What if a condom breaks or slips off?
Depends if ejaculation happened.
Yeah.
If not, lower risk, but still get tested for STIs, especially with a new partner. If after ejaculation, consider emergency contraception within the time frame,
Right.
and definitely STI testing.
Okay. What about running out of condoms mid-moment?
The safest is always to abstain from unprotected vaginal sex. But acknowledging reality, she suggests lower risk alternatives. The usual masturbation, oral sex. If you do proceed without a condom, practice withdrawal before ejaculation to reduce risk, remembering it's not as reliable as condoms.
Understood. The author also shares updated data on anal sex prevalence.
Yeah, noting it's become significantly more common, especially among younger adults, which underscores the need for accurate info on safer, more pleasurable anal play.
Key advice being,
Start slow and gentle, tons of water-based lube, new condom each time, respect the sphincter muscles, don't force it. Okay to stop and try again later if it's uncomfortable.
good reminders. It's true, as norms change, sex changes, and talking about what people actually do helps normalize conversations.
Exactly, without pressure to conform. She emphasizes the huge diversity of sexual expression lists over 60 different activities. Suggests a sexual menu exercise for couples.
A menu. Sounds fun. Exploring desires.
Yeah, porn use in relationships is also addressed. Acknowledges varying perspectives, suggests open communication, counseling if it's causing distress or feels out of control.
Okay, fisting.
Less common, but practiced. Emphasizes thorough research beforehand, starting incredibly slow and gentle. Tons of lube, maybe gloves. Absolute importance of trust, communication, enthusiastic consent. Recommend specific books.
Good resources. And, stuck fuzzy handcuffs.
Seek emergency medical help. Don't try cutting them off yourself and risk injury.
Got it. ER for fuzzy handcuffs. Sex dreams.
Varied, sometimes surprising content. Suggest taking them with a grain of salt don't necessarily reflect conscious desires.
Okay. Threesomes. Big topic.
No universal answer on whether it's good or bad for a relationship. Some couples enjoy them, others don't. Crucial element. Thorough discussion of rules, boundaries, expectations beforehand, who, what, how.
Communication is key. Always. What about a facial?
Explains what it is, acknowledges opinions vary. Tips for those interested. Clear communication, consent, aim away from eyes, the hand shield maneuver. Rinse eyes with water if semen gets in.
Hand shield again. Useful. The overall message seems to be that normal sex is just what feels good and is consensual for everyone involved.
Exactly. Unconventional practices can be healthy if enjoyed by everyone.
What about encountering someone you know at a sex club? Awkward.
Different comfort levels. Respect privacy, consider personal risks, relationship, job. Discreet clubs might be better if anonymity is key.
Makes sense. Making a homemade sex tape.
Big consideration. Potential for public exposure. Extreme caution advised if that's a worry. If both are comfortable with risks, discuss faces, storage, uploading implications, legal sobriety.
Lots to think about there. What about mental distractions during sex? Worries, body image, performance anxiety?
Common stuff. Suggest mindfulness. Focus on breath, physical sensations, address to-do lists beforehand, pack essentials for dates to minimize worry.
Be present. And pets, the ultimate distraction.
Who hasn't been interrupted? Shares amusing anecdotes, survey data on pet interference, suggests pet-free zones or distracting pets. Also mentions considering severe pet allergies when dating.
Good point. And being too tired for sex because pets wake you up.
References studies on pets in bed disrupting sleep. Emphasizes importance of restful sleep for well-being and desire. Maybe Fido needs his own bed sometimes.
Maybe so. Okay, shifting to sex during pregnancy.
Discusses common changes in desire and satisfaction across trimesters. Emphasizes communication, finding comfortable positions like spooning later on.
And the old wives' tale about sex-inducing labor.
Addresses it, references research. Suggests if comfortable and clear by a doctor, gentle sex is generally safe. Might help, might not.
Okay, then sex after baby.
Acknowledges it takes time, weeks to months, for intercourse to feel comfortable, for sex life to find a new normal.
Common challenges.
Pain, vaginal dryness, especially with breastfeeding, exhaustion. But also points out changes aren't always negative. New positions might become pleasurable.
Finding the new normal.
Offers specific advice. Briefly turn off baby monitor for privacy. Acknowledge the baby's impact. Have a plan if a child walks in. Reassure child. Address needs.
Practical tips and more pet anecdotes.
Of course. Cat licking lubricant, dog barking at kissing, the joys of pet ownership.
Huh. Okay, one last sex smarts quiz. Spectatoring.
Being overly self-conscious, feeling like you're watching and judging your own performance during sex.
Got it. Most women unable to have sex throughout pregnancy.
False.
And pets sleeping in the marital bed.
Studies show around a third of pet owners allow it.
Interesting. Finally, the book directs people to a resources section.
Yeah, comprehensive list for further learning. Books, websites, orgs like Planned Parenthood, the Kinsey Institute. Really useful.
Wow, we have truly covered an incredible amount of ground in this deep dive into Sex Made Easy.
We really have.
Hopefully this has provided you, our listener, with a streamlined way to grasp the wide range of topics and glean some really valuable, immediately applicable knowledge.
And as the author consistently emphasizes throughout the book, the vast majority of people experience sexual questions, concerns, even difficulties at some point.
It's normal.
Totally normal. Having access to accurate, straightforward information is absolutely essential for navigating these experiences and, well, ultimately leading a more fulfilling and healthy sex life.
So for our final thought today, we encourage you to take a moment, reflect on maybe one or two new insights from this deep dive that particularly resonated with you.
Yeah, what stuck out?
Consider how you might apply this newfound knowledge to your own understanding of sex, maybe your relationships, or just your overall well-being.
Perhaps even take the next step. Explore some of those resources mentioned for an even deeper exploration of something that piqued your interest.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing your source material with us and for taking this deep dive into the world of Sex Made Easy.
We truly hope it has been both informative and maybe even a little bit entertaining.